In this video, I'm going to break down some tricks that I learned from a sales page video, a video sales letter on a sales page that makes $30,000 per day, according to the owner of that page. So that was pretty mind-blowing. So in this video, I am going to break down some of the tricks from that video. So if you want to make $30,000 a day, I'd like to. Listen up. And I'm summarizing this video because it helps me to ingrain this, what I just learned into my brain, so I don't just forget everything that I learned. So, get started. He started the video by being very direct about what his offer was, and he says that this is part of knowing your audience, right? Whenever you make any piece of content or a sales video or whatever, you always want to know who it's directed to. Who are your audience? What is the situation in life that they are in? For him, in this case, it was a software for business owners to do better tracking for their advertising. So if you're unfamiliar with how that works, when you go to advertise on Facebook or YouTube, you want to know when somebody buys your product from the ad. And it's not, there are cookies that will track that somewhat, but they don't really track it all that well. And so what his software does is tracks it better so that you can see more accurately what ads are working and what ads are not working. So he's talking to business owners here, and he knows that business owners are people who tend to be busy. They've heard a lot of sales pitches. They tend to be fairly skeptical, and they value their time highly. So instead of going through some big long intro saying, hey, my name is blank and I'm the CEO of blank corporation, and instead of doing any of that, he just says, okay, let's get straight to the chase. Okay, let's cut straight to the chase here. And then talks about the benefits of what he has to offer. He's like, I have this thing, it will benefit you in this way, and it's guaranteed. Right, so what he's doing is he's listing why you might be interested, or what the thing is, rather, why you should be interested, and the risk reversal, why it's actually no risk to you. So that's a really strong hook, a really strong intro that gets people, because the intro to a video, or which is the same as the headline on a sales page or on an email. The whole purpose of that headline or intro is to get the person to keep watching or to keep reading. And so he really hooks people with that because it's a pretty grandiose offer. And right after making that claim, he says, I know that sounds crazy, or if you're wondering if this is really real, then blah, 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 blah. I don't remember what his words were exactly, but the point is that he makes a big claim, and then he is anticipating that the person is going to be skeptical. The person is going to doubt whether the big claim is actually true. And so he gets right into the person's mind and says, I know you're skeptical, or if you're feeling skeptical, which a lot of people are, then here's why it's real. And then, I don't remember what he says immediately after that, but he gets into, I think after that he gets into social proof. He gets into, he gives a little bit of a better justification for what it is and how it works. And he mentions that you want to give a really easy explanation. And this is something I thought was really cool too. He says, it uses AI tracking to do blah, 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 blah. It's like a one-sentence explanation of something that's a very high-tech software. And he says, if you want to know all the technical details, there's a video right below this video that you can watch that describes it all in detail. This is really cool because what he's doing there is he's helping two different types of people. He realizes that there's some of his audience is very technical and they want to know all the little details about how the software works, but part of his audience is not. And if he starts talking about technical details, then they're just going to get bored and they're going to give up on the video. They're going to leave. So he gives the technical people what they want. He says, okay, go ahead and just watch that video down there. Right? But the non-technical people, they don't have to watch the video. And he also says, and I thought this was interesting, that by addressing somebody's, you can address somebody's concerns by saying, we'll get to that later. And a lot of times, that's good enough for them. That answers their concern. So somebody's wondering, how does this work technically? You can say either, we'll get to it later, or after you watch this video, watch that video down there. And a lot of times, people will think, oh, okay, well, that answers my question, without even watching the video, or without even watching the explanation later, which is an interesting hack. I'm not sure how, I believe that works, because I believe that he's telling the truth. I've never really tried that myself, and I certainly wouldn't promise that you're going to say it later if you don't say it later, because there's just going to be some people that are going to call you out on that, and it's going to, you know, obviously if you're lying to people, or you're breaking your promises before the person's ever bought from you, that's like a really bad beginning of the professional relationship. Anyway, from there he goes into a whole bunch of social proof, and he talks about all of these well-known people in the industry who have used his product and have gotten the results that he's promising, that have gotten these amazing results. And so the social proof is really helpful, and he says that he basically spent 6 months, the first 6 months of having the product, getting this proof, getting these results for people, and he was just losing money the whole time. He was letting people use it for free just so that he could get these case studies, which is something that you can do with software, because especially this software, because it's an easy one to set up. With other businesses, it's more difficult. I tried to do that with coaching. It's hard to do that with coaching because it's hard to get people results for free, because when you say, hey, I'm going to coach you for free just so I can get, just so I can get results and a testimonial from you. Well, what ends up happening is that people are really not that serious and they don't follow through. And as a result, understandably, they don't get results, right? They never get the result that you're hoping to prove. So, for this particular business, that makes a lot of sense, especially because he had connections with people that were big names in the industry. He had Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and ClickFunnels and Alex Hormozy and people like that, which gave him a lot of credibility. And then at some point he went into the numbers specifically about how much money the prospect is going to save by using this. And he says he doesn't use his best results. He doesn't use his most dramatic results. He uses some of the less dramatic results, actually, because it just seems more reasonable. And I found this too, that if you make a big promise and you put a big number on it, then people are sometimes less likely to believe you than if you put a number that sounds reasonable in people's heads. Now, your big number could be totally accurate, but people's minds are not expanded to that level yet, and so they tend not to be capable of believing in a claim that's too far out of their current reality. So he was getting into the numbers, and he was saying that, look, if you're spending X number of dollars on ads, and the attribution is whatever percent, and we can get you up to this percent, which is totally normal, we do it all the time, then you're saving $10,000 a month on ad spend, and our software costs a fraction of that. And on top of that, it's guaranteed. So here he's comparing the numbers. He's saying, here's the benefit, here's the value that we have to offer, compared to here, way down here is the price. And he doesn't actually say what the price is. He just says that the price is a lot lower than the benefit to be offered. And I found that to be very helpful with selling just about anything. Like, you want to establish what the value is, and that the value is considerably higher than the price is. And this is something that depends on your offer. So this is one that clearly saves money. So it's really easy to put a value on something that saves money. What is the value of the thing? Well, it's the amount of money that you save. That's the value. And if the price is less than the amount of money that you save, well, then it's a good value, right? It's a no-brainer to buy, assuming that you believe all of the claims. That's not always the case with every product, because sometimes the value is less tangible. If you think about, for a coaching offer where you teach somebody to have a better relationship, or to find a husband or a wife, or to have a better relationship with their kids, or to lose weight, all of those things are very valuable to people, but they don't have an obvious dollar value on them. And so you're going to have to be a little bit more clever if you have a product like that. So something, and you can tie it to dollar values though. So for example, let's say that you can teach somebody to lose 20 pounds. You could ask, how much would you pay for, let's say, liposuction that would lose the same 20 pounds for you? And if that, let's say, I have no idea how much that costs. Let's say that costs $5,000. And then you can say, well, I'm not going to charge you $5,000. I'm only going to charge you $1,000. Right? You're establishing that the value is up here and the price is down here. Or if it's a marriage offer, how to save your marriage. Well, what is the price that you're going to pay to lawyers and to alimony and the rest of it if you get a divorce? Well, it's probably pretty expensive. It's way up here, and I only charge $5,000 for my course, way down here. So establish the value. And another trick that I like to do too is to lengthen the time frame too. So if you can save somebody $10,000 a month, well, that means that you're saving them $120,000 a year. Or if they use it for 5 years, that's $600,000. If they use it for 10 years, that's $1.2 million a year. And so you can contrast that with the price. Is it worth, I'm sorry, I said 1.2 million a year. No, it's 1.2 million total over 10 years. So you can say, my product costs 10 grand. Is it worth paying 10 grand one time to save $1.2 million over the next 10 years? Of course it is, right? You're just separating, you're spreading the gap between that value and the price of the product. And then he goes into the guarantee. He says a whole bunch of times, if you're not happy for any reason, you don't pay. Those are his words, you don't pay. Which, I like that language, you don't pay. That seems to work pretty well. I've seen a lot of people use that same language. The truth is that they do pay, but then they'll get a refund if they're not happy with it. But saying you don't pay is not a very big stretch of the truth. But it makes it sound like less of a commitment, right? Whereas if you say you'll get your money back, well, then they do have to pay, and now they have to rely on your honesty that you are actually going to give them their money back the way that you say that they do. And that seems like less certain than just get results or you don't pay. That's a stronger wording. And he also makes it happiness based. So he says, he's not saying that if you don't make X amount of money or you don't save this amount of money, then we'll give you your money back. He's saying if you're not happy with it for any reason, then we'll give you your money back. So now the person doesn't even have to prove that they didn't make money. They just have to say that they're not happy with it. Which from his perspective, for having a good product, which he mentions is very, very important, you want to have a good product. Well, if he's actually saving people money, then they're not going to want to quit the software. they're not going to want to give it back. They're not going to want to get their money back, because then they're going to lose money in the longer term. So he can do that. And the risk reversal is very powerful because people are afraid of losing out. In fact, most people are more afraid of losing something than they are excited by the possibility of gaining something. That's something that I believe is just built into our nature. We're more worried about losing something, or it hurts more to lose something than to gain something. And it's disproportional too. So it could be like, if you lose $1,000, that hurts more than gaining $2,000. Even though the gain is bigger than the loss is still makes you more sad than the gain would make you happy. And then he tells a story as well. He tells a story about how he came up with the software in the first place. He puts himself in the shoes of his prospective buyers because he was in the same situation. He said, I spent all this money on ads, and this lack of proper attribution was killing me, and I was wasting all this money, and so I went and developed a solution that worked for me, and then I started saving all this money, and my ads started working better, and I'm offering you the same opportunity that you can use the same thing. And he says stories are really, really helpful because stories are hard to argue with. They're kind of a backdoor into convincing people of things. If you want somebody to believe something, and a lot of times there are beliefs that a person has to have in order to be willing to buy your product, if you want them to believe it, if you just say to them, hey, this thing is true, you should believe this, here's why you should believe this, people naturally have their defenses up. They're naturally resistant to that because people are preached at by a lot of people a lot of times, and they can't afford to just ping pong back and forth between everything that they hear, everything that they're told to believe. And so they put their guard up when they're told to believe something different than they already believe. However, when people hear a story, well, it puts the guard down because this is your experience. How am I going to argue with your experience? I'm just going to listen to what happened to you and make some conclusions based on that. And so that's a much better way of convincing somebody of a new belief than actually trying to shove that new belief down their throat. So that's it. I think that's probably about as much as I can remember. I think that's a pretty good summary. So I found this very helpful. I think it's going to be useful for any sales content, copy, VSLs, even just content on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter that is intended to sell something. Let me know what you think.